If you're a pop culture junkie who loves TV, film, music, comedy, and other really important stuff, then you've come to the right place. Get ready and settle in for Classic Conversations, the best pop culture interviews in the world. That's right, we circled the globe so you don't have to. If you're ready to be the king of the water cooler, then you're ready for Classic Conversations with your host, Jeff Dwoskin.
All right, Lori, thank you so much for that amazing introduction. You get the show going each and every week, and this week was no exception. Welcome, everybody, to episode 249 of Classic Conversations. As always, I am your host, Jeff Dwoskin. Great to have you back for what's sure to be an A-list episode. My guest today is none other than Michelle Danner. That's right, film and stage director, world-renowned acting coach. Michelle has taught acting for over 27 years. She's worked with A-list actors such as Abigail Breslin, Salma Hayek, Andy Garcia, and a million more. She's also an amazing director. We're going to talk about some of her films, The Bandit, Hound, one of my personal faves, and her newest film, Miranda's Victim. Michelle is like a quadruple threat of creativity. You're going to love my conversation, and that's coming up in just a few seconds. And in these few seconds, I want to remind everyone of my amazing conversation with TV's Michael Gray. That's right, Billy Batson from Shazam. Nope, still just me. Billy Batson from Shazam. Nope. Anyway, it's a great conversation. Michael shares all his memories from that amazing TV show. Check that out. But first, check out my incredible conversation with Michelle Danner. Enjoy. My next guest is a teacher, storyteller, director of stage and film, world-renowned acting coach for over 30 years, working with some of the biggest names in the business. Welcome to the show, Michelle Danner.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Pretty good.
You do a lot. You act, direct, teach acting. I mean, it's like, where do you find the time? Did the directing sort of evolve from teaching acting? And I'm really interested in kind of the teaching acting thing. My goal is for you to teach me to be an actor by the end of this podcast interview, and then I can star in your next movie.
You know what? Everything is possible. That's my philosophy. Yes, absolutely. Teaching was a great stepping stone to wanting to direct. And ultimately, what I understood is that when you're acting in someone else's project, when they say it's a wrap, you can go have postpartum depression. But when, you're doing theater, for instance, that's an actor's medium, and the director has to give that up to the actors. So theater is an actor's medium. Movies is a director's medium. And if you want to be the one to truly, sign the painting, you have to direct. That's what's so interesting. Directing is interesting because you get to choose a lot of different things, the composition of how you want it to look, the colors, the shape, the textures. And so I became fascinated by that.
Did you go to any additional schooling for that? Is it all something that kind of naturally, because your main focus with the acting, right, is like how to have these players, like these pieces of the larger puzzle that the director kind of puts all together. But then to step back and kind of make that entire world a reality. It's an amazing thing. But how did you kind of embrace that and just learn it? And like just by, just doing it? Did you have mentors? Did you have like
mentors in terms of filmmakers? Yes. I wish I had gone to film school. My son is studying currently theater and film at USC, and I vicariously lived through him. I did take some film directing classes. Mostly I'm self-taught. I've watched a lot of wonderful directors like Steven Spielberg and Mike Leigh. I was definitely very inspired by the work of Mike Leigh, the English director, and watched directors' commentaries. Love James Brooks, Anthony Minghella. And you just learn from watching a lot. And then from listening to the commentaries, studying interviews. Yeah, I was mostly self-taught, but of course I've studied my whole life acting. And so I studied with Stella Adler and with Uta Hagen and with Herbert Bergdorf and a countless number of extraordinary acting teachers. And very quickly just became absolutely entranced with the craft of acting. what would it take to give this performance? And that's what I've studied in depth. And so I love actors. I love working with actors. I love trying to figure out what, they can bring to a certain character, how they can inhabit it, how they can break down the script, all the nuances, the colors that you bring, to the palette. There isn't a day that doesn't go by that I don't feel very lucky that I truly get to do, the art form that I'm drawn to.
I think it's amazing. Well, one, let me say, that's what I miss most about getting DVDs is the commentary, because the commentaries are fascinating. Like it's almost like you're to watch a movie with the understanding of the person who did it, explaining why they did things and the nuances is amazing. No one's ever brought that up before.
I agree. I love, as a matter of fact, I watched with my kids the commentary of Damien Chazelle's Whiplash, because early on I showed them that movie when it came out, and I wanted to talk to them about, what it meant to pursue excellence, the definition of that. I obviously did not want them to literally bleed, just metaphorically, but sometimes there's a cost, there's a price to pay when you want to achieve that level of excellence.
Whiplash, great movie. I watched The Bandit Hound. Loved it. I mean, for self-taught, I'm like, amazing. It was such an enjoyable movie. All of it, the story, the acting, everybody. Lou Ferrigno was awesome. Judd Hirsch. Hadn't seen those guys in a long time. It was funny. And your son's in it.
Yeah, my son's in it. My 11-year-old son who now studies at USC. But what's interesting about that is I auditioned 30 dogs for that movie. They all came with their trainers, and they were just all wonderful dogs. And then I had just lost the Siberian Husky that I adored, that lived for 16 years. And we adopted 2 puppies, 2 Australian Shepherds, Blue Angel and Evergreen. And very early on, I went, they're like really smart dogs. And so we got a trainer that came and trained them and was on set every day with them, because I cast them in the Bandit Hound. So I was a little late to this podcast because one of them, Blue Angel, the main one, the one with the blue eyes, unfortunately is shaking a little bit today, and he's 10 years old now. And so 10 and a half. And of course, every little thing, you're, always concerned. It's like a child. It's like your children.
Is there anyone in your family not super talented? Your son, you, your dog?
We're a family of artists. As a matter of fact, if you look at our front door, we have this like 16th century Indian front door. And I said, whoever looks at this front door would know that there's a family of artists living in this house. But we're all about going to see things, to the museum, to the theater, to traveling all over the world. I was watching last night at 1:30 in the morning with my 13-year-old son, The Hunger Games, and I hadn't seen that in forever. And Donald Sutherland is in it, who I just recently worked with. And we're constantly watching, doing something, exploring, which leads us to creating, which is what we're into.
That's incredible. So I have more Bandit Hound questions, which is an amazing family film. And your dog is quite the kleptomaniac. So the idea of the movie for everyone, so they can go check it out, is this lovable dog basically is taught to be a bank robber. And so it can literally steal stuff out of purses and stuff like that. It's adorable. And it has so many cool people in it. Vern Troyer. Okay, so if you go see this movie, Vern Troyer, Mini-Me, everyone who knows Mini-Me, slaps Lou Ferrigno, the Hulk. It's worth the price of admission just for that scene.
That's a great scene. Vern Troyer is a wonderful actor. Sadly, is no longer here on earth with us. I had coached him. That's how I met him for a movie. And so when I asked him to do this, I knew Lou Ferrigno was going to do it. And so that was a great scene with them. Yes. Mini-Me and the Hulk.
Oh, that's Blue Angel. That's like 2 stars on the podcast. I got the star.
You have sound design.
Oh, and Jim O'Heir is in it. I just talked with Jim O'Heir. Nicest guy in the world.
Jim O'Heir is a wonderful actor, and he did this great scenes with Paul Sorvino, who also is no longer with us. Oh my God, what's happening? So yeah, I did a couple of movies with Paul Sorvino, The Bandit Hound being one of them. And he was great, and Jim O'Heir was great. Judd Nelson was wonderful. I went to school with Judd Nelson. We were in Stella Adler's class.
Judd Nelson is, The Breakfast Club is still one of my favorite movies of all time. He is great. He is great. Yeah, it was a super, and then of course you're in it as well. You play the mom of a bully.
I play a bully. I play the opposite of who I am.
Right. Right. You're super sweet. You're definitely playing a Karen in that movie of the kid who's bullying your son, your real son.
Yeah,
It
exactly.
was really great in this. I got to say, I'm like, I know I went to say, I'm like, oh, this kid is good. And then I was writing down the names. He wasn't on the first page of the IMDb. And so I looked it up and I'm like, wait a minute. This is Michelle's son. So I was legit going to say and compliment your son before I even realized he was your
Uh,
son. He was really good in that. And
he earned it. He earned
he
it.
definitely earned it.
This is the summer he learned to play Minecraft in the trailer while he was, shooting between takes. Yeah, it was a great experience doing that movie. Also wonderful. Catherine Bell was in it. Joe Flanagan. I had a great cast. It was just a little family movie. When I was teaching in Lima, Peru, I got calls that, there was a bidding war. Everybody wanted to distribute it. We ended up going with Alchemy. That was like the best deal they gave us. And then it turns out that they ended up going bankrupt. So another movie, company took it over. Yeah, it was a movie made with love. So I'm happy that I did it.
You mentioned Donald Sutherland. So he's in your new movie, your most recent movie, Miranda's Victim.
Yes.
This is making the circuits right now.
It's playing the festival circuit. We were just a couple of weeks ago at Gasparilla Film Festival in Tampa, Florida, in this beautiful historical theater. Before that, we were the opening night movie. We were both the opening night movie for the two festivals. The first one was the Santa Barbara Film Festival. A lot of our cast came, walked the red carpet and supported the movie. And now we get a few more coming up. We're excited about the movie. It's a true story about this wonderful, courageous woman, Patricia Weir, who stood up and fought for her story, for her voice to be heard in 1963. And this court case led to the Miranda rights. And so another movie that I did called The Runner, it opens with you have the right to remain silent, anything, and I never questioned, where did that story come from? How did that come about? And this is what this movie, Miranda's Victim, talks about, how the Miranda rights came about. So we're very excited about it. Abigail Breslin is in it, in addition to the wonderful Donald Sutherland. Andy Garcia also joined our cast, and Kyle MacLachlan, and Ryan Felipe, and Luke Wilson, and Emily Van Kam, Josh Bowman, Dan Loria, Nolan Gould, wonderful Sebastian Quinn, who plays Ernesto Miranda. So I just was so
You're
lucky.
just bragging now, Michelle.
I'm bragging.
You get big names in your movies.
Yeah, it was a great cast. But not only was it a great cast, but they were a heartfelt cast. They came with their heart and their passion and their beautiful choices, and we just played on set. We had an extraordinary filming time where we just played and everybody was excited to be there. Everybody wanted to contribute. Everybody felt that this was an important story that needed to be told, that for some reason was never told. I just had a grand time working with these wonderful actors.
Sorry to interrupt. We have to take a quick break, but don't use this time to run off and watch Miranda's Victim. You'll have plenty of time when the interview's over. But in the meantime, I do want to thank everyone for their support of the sponsors. When you support the sponsors, you're supporting us here at Classic Conversations, and that's how we keep the lights on. And now back to my fabulous conversation with Michelle Danner. It's funny because as I was doing the research and I grabbed the blurb for this, in 1963, 18-year-old Patricia Weir, attacked by Ernesto Miranda. And I'm like, it never occurred to me that there was a story behind it either. It's like, I never knew Miranda was a name for some reason. I just thought it was what they called it. You know what I mean? Yeah, I'm fascinated. I can't wait to see this movie.
True Stories is about justice, true justice, personal justice, justice in a court of law. And finally, what's also incredible about this particular story, it's about karmic justice. It comes full circle.
I can't wait to see it. When in reading this, the blurb though, and I'm realizing that Miranda was actually the attacker, it made me wonder, why do they call it the Miranda rights versus name it after the person who was brave enough to get these protections in place?
Well, for that, you have to watch the movie and you will find out.
All right, a little teaser, everyone. Michelle, what's the process of you make the movie and then, because I know I saw in all your films, you're winning best director, this, that, you're in the festivals, you're showing in all the festivals on that circuit. Is that just part of the process to then get a distributor? And when you make a movie and you get it made? And then how is this the process of getting it early seen before it gets wide releases?
A lot of, depending what movie it is, but a lot of movies do a festival circuit and win awards and then get distribution, or they already have distribution of the offset. In our case, CAA is repping the movie and they're looking at distribution, and we'll know fairly soon where we're going to land and when the movie will come out. I think probably the fall. And yeah, hopefully it'll have a great life and people will want to see it. We've already gotten some really wonderful reviews. Ebert.com give it a great review. And we have another maybe 10 great reviews that came out. Everybody agrees the ensemble, it's just great acting. And Abigail Breslin is the spine of the story. And she carries it and you really feel her. You're with her emotionally. She was extraordinary to work with and really wanted to tell this story. We had coffee. I sent it to her. She read it right away. We met the day after. We had coffee. We looked into each other's eyes and we said, we're going to make this movie. We're going to make, we're going to make a great movie. And so hopefully a lot of people think that it is, a lot of people, I'm not going to, toot my horn.
Well, allow me.
Yeah.
This is a quote off one of the posts from your Twitter feed. This is a powerful story that will no doubt speak to a lot of people. And I think Danner has done the material the justice it so rightly deserves. Boom. Awesome.
See, well, that's good. It makes me feel good that because I was offered this movie. I did, on a Sunday. I always remember when I got the email. I came into the study, where I am right now. And I looked, I was like, oh, interesting. And I answered right away. Usually I wait to answer emails on Monday, but I'm the one that answered and said, yeah, this is right up my alley. I thought these guys must know that I'm into crime stories and, this kind of stuff, true stories. And so the rest, it took steps, but I was able to inspire the executive producers on my vision for the movie. And the rest is history. It fell into place, which when you look back at your life, you know that sometimes when things are meant to be, it falls into place. And when things are just not meant to be, you can push as much as you want, but it's just not going to happen. But this one happened.
That was going to be my next question, actually. Did this movie find you or did you find it? Do people normally this is your 7th film, right?
I think so. I'm looking here. I have them.
I've lost track. How many films?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's my 6th, number 6.
Okay. All right.
There will be a 7th. I just got offered a big movie, which is not announced yet, but it's going to be announced at the end of this week.
About a podcaster that interviews the show. It's under wraps, so it's under wraps. That's how. So when you're directing and the actors like Abigail and Donald and all that kind of stuff, do you have to stop being a teacher and you're being a director? Is there like a difference in being able to approach? Because now they're working for you and they're in this film. So they're coming in as the actor that they are.
I believe there's a big difference. I really do. I mean, when you're teaching, you're demonstrating, you're showing, your students how to get there. You're giving them the blueprint, you're script analyzing it together. You're helping them to get into the character. When you're directing, you don't have time to do any of that. So you're much more result oriented. And also, you're working with actors that have done the work. They're coming in with a full-fledged character in their bodies. They've made certain choices and you look at the choices and you say, okay, or, if I can add to the conversation. Apparently there was a time where all the actors had a drink and together, and they talked about how happy they were with the notes that I was giving them. I was happy that 100% of my actors took 100% of my notes. It's an art to know. So my son is a filmmaker as well. So he was shadowing me doing this production. And partly what he wanted to learn was how to talk to actors, which is why there's a lot of directing classes in this town, because directors are intimidated. They don't know how to talk to actors. There's a way to, be able to inspire them, to give the best of them. But more than that, to get an actor to take risks, because I believe that ultimately that's the gold. When an actor is able to let go to the degree that they really can take risks and make those raw choices those choices that are so outside of the box, that are so non-mental, that are physical, that are psychological, that grip you as an audience, and to be able to create an environment, a safe place that an actor can get to that place inside of themselves and they can let go to that degree. That is absolutely the objective.
Awesome. So going back in time for a second, like you grew up in a kind of a entertainment household, right? Your father opened a William Morris agency in Paris, France. And did you grow up in France?
I did. I grew up in Europe. I grew up in France, in Paris, in the outskirts, close to Versailles. My dad opened the first offices of the William Morris agency, now William Morris Endeavor, off the Champs-Élysées. And I was very, very close to my dad. He was just a great father. And he would take me to the office often, and I'd play under his desk. And I would just be privy to all these wonderfully big stars coming in and discussing their careers, their dreams, their vision board. Also, as a very young age, I was attracted to reading, so I would always bring books with me. I was an avid reader, would go to libraries and bookstores and just, love to read. Something that has followed me throughout my life, except, when you live and you're busy, you have less time to read all the things you want to read. I had a wonderful childhood. It was a childhood that had a lot of art in it. I was very exposed to the arts and exposed to actors and performers, singers, dancers. They would come to the house. They would have parties that would be hours and hours on end, where they would cook food in the kitchen and play the piano and share poems. It was a great artistic childhood.
Any particular actors, dancers, anyone there that would kind of walked into your dad's office and you're like, it just sparked, you're like, this is what I need to do?
Well, he had many conversations with Edith Piaf and Marlene Dietrich. They didn't come into the office. I remember Julio Iglesias coming into the office. I remember Liza Minnelli. I remember Charles Aznavour. Those old timers, those Benny Goodman, Bill Haley. Although he didn't come into the office, my dad spoke to him on the phone. There's a whole story there.
Do tell.
Bill Haley had a thing with my mom when my dad took him on tour. But anyway, my mom and dad staying with my dad because then I was born. So there you go.
There you go. All right, so that's interesting. So you were exposed to the visions, the dreams, the goals of all these actors, and then internalized that, took on acting yourself, but then also tried to help other actors reach their greatest potential by becoming the best kind of actor they can be in your acting school.
Yes. And I'm very happy that I have this acting school. When I teach, which I'm about to teach a bunch of classes now coming up, sometimes I have a great faculty of teachers, so I'm able to take a break and go shoot a movie. But when I am not in production, I usually teach classes and sit down with my students individually, one-on-one. And I think that everybody is happy to come together in a community because that's what young actors that are learning to act long for. They long for community. They long for this creative family that they can join. And this is what we have created both at the Los Angeles Acting Conservatory and the Michel Danner Acting Studio. I'm just so happy that we have that space, that creative home.
Can you explain to me the different acting styles? Because I know there's everyone always kind of says which one they do, like Meisner technique, Lee Strasberg. There's a bunch of others I'm not mentioning at the exact moment, but I know your style is to kind of put them all together into a golden box to create a tool set. How does an actor pick which one of these are, and how did these different styles evolve, and what draws one person to one and one to another? And your concept of pieces probably makes the most sense to me. Like I'm a little bit this, I'm a little bit that, but can you take me through that a little bit? Teach me.
Yes, I think an actor today that studies acting needs to learn about Stanislavski, who's the grandfather. It started with him. He, in Russia, decided he was going to study actors to understand what is great acting, what gives you that great acting moment, that great performance. And so he studied it and documented it in a series of books that can be studied and read by actors. The translation's sometimes not great. I think there's a new translation that's out, and sometimes his concepts are a little esoteric to understand. Both Stella Adler and Lee Strasberg went to study with Stanislavski, and they both understood two different things. That Stanislavski was a proponent of using your imagination. That was Stella's belief. And Lee Strasberg's belief was that the actor should draw on their personal life. And the truth is that Stanislavski believed in both, and that's why they both heard those two things. He believed in using your imagination and using your personal life. But then, this literal, big fight continued with Stella Adler and Lee Strasberg, where, they just, went at each other because they both thought, this is the way you do it. No, this is the way you do it. And both had very dogmatic approaches. And Stanley Meisner had another approach where he felt that the most important thing, which he's not wrong, is to get it from the other person, put your attention on the other person. And that is also the basis of what great acting is. I studied with Stella, and I studied the method, and I studied the Meisner technique with Bill Esper in New York. And I came to the conclusion that I hated dogma. Dogma just made me want to run away. I rebelled against it. I don't believe there's only one way to do it. The same way, when I looked around for schools for my children, I believed in progressive education. I don't believe that in this outdated, there's only one way. No, because then my rebellious mind goes, well, what about this? Or what about that? Or what about that? And so I think that it behooves the actor to just read and learn about everything and take, tools that speak to them, technical tools on how to build a character, how to break down the script, how to make the choices, and add them to their golden box that I call, that only the actor has their key to their very unique golden box. And to that toolbox, you add the lessons that you learn when you work on set, when you work in the theater, life lessons. All of these go in that very unique, personalized, creative box. So this idea of everybody come to the middle, this herd thing, everybody be the same, there's no such thing when it comes to actors. Every actor is unique. And so the approach, the technique, the craft that they have to study is a craft that works particularly for them, for their sensitivity, for their instrument. So that's my belief in terms of how actors should pursue that foundation. That craft will follow them for the rest of their careers.
So if people are on set, is this like a religion to them in the sense, you know what I mean? Like in the same way, like a Mac or PC, not this, and like, what they believe, you believe what you believe. So if they're like, my scene coming up, she's Meisner. Oh God. You know what I mean? Or in this, I'm Lee Strasberg in this scenario. They're like, all right, let's get through this. Is there any of that, like where, or just when they come to the table, they just do their thing? And, one of the things that's like loud, like Brian Cox is always kind of knocking
Jeremy Strong,
right? He's like, I've never seen an actor like, he goes, his acting technique, he's just like annoying. And I think Kendall Roy is amazing.
Well, whatever it is that's happening between these actors off stage and however they, talk about their techniques is obviously working for whatever's happening in front of the camera. The same way when athletes, they play a game and they, talk shit and they try and get into the psychology, of what's happening. It works. Everybody should do what they want to do. When actors come to the table to work on a project together, they do. There's a phase, where you feel each other out. You go, what kind of a performer are you? What kind of an artist are you? How do you like to work? But the truth of the matter, and that's why what Sandy Meisner taught, it was very powerful. And even Sidney Lumet talks about it in his book on making movies, is that there's a common denominator to all those actors with all those different techniques, whether they're classically trained or whether they're, the method, or is that to just simply breathe and talk and listen to one another is the key to everything. But it is true, I think, that actors, sense a little bit, have a moment to see, how do you work? Are we going to work well together? And it doesn't matter that you get along or don't get along. As a matter of fact, there's been, several things that have been written throughout the years about actors that despised each other and yet had great chemistry on screen. By the same token, you could have actors to get along with each other very well and have very little chemistry together. So fireworks are good.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, you're right about, them talking shit with each other. I mean, Succession is one of the best shows on TV, and they're both amazing in it.
Brilliant. Yeah. Because they manage to tell us the story of a group of very unlikable people and because feel for them somehow I mean, the one that I feel the most for is Jeremy Strong's character. And I think that because Jeremy Strong does something very, very good, is that he has justified his character's need for love in a very deep way. And you feel that he needs this love from the very first season when he's running to that board meeting, trying to overthrow everything. And he's getting out of the taxi and he's the car and he's running, running, running. You know, you just feel ultimately it's not his need for power. It's his need for love and acceptance. And we can all understand that.
Absolutely. Excellent analysis. All right, Michelle. That's what you do, right?
Yes, that's what I get paid the big bucks to do. When my kids try to screw me over and I say, oh, well, no, it's really, this is what's going on. That's what I say to them.
Sorry to interrupt. Last time I promised, but we have to take a quick break. And we're back with Michelle Danner. So can I ask you about a couple actors? I'll ask you about ones that were on your Twitter feed, not necessarily ones that you worked with, because I'm sure that's a little tighter relationship. You on your Twitter feed, you were talking about Brendan Fraser's amazing turn in The Whale. And so, you know, that's, I think everyone loves that. So going from Encino Man to, you know, to this unbelievable.
So brave. I was talking to somebody who was saying that everybody knew from the moment that movie came out that he was going to win the Oscar. Everybody knew that.
It's interesting when I watched, I'm blanking on names because I didn't, Jessica
Chastain?
When I watched Jessica Chastain in the Tammy Faye movie, the second that movie was over, I'm like, that was one of the best performances I've ever seen. like to me, like I felt like, oh, she's going to win. And it's rare though that you watch something and you feel that close to it, like where you're like, that's, I think, a real special thing when you witness that firsthand. And Brendan Fraser for sure had that as well.
That's right. Sometimes you feel, when I saw the movie Coda, because I knew the actor Troy Katsur is how you say his name, who plays the father in Coda. I emailed him right away and I said, you're going to win an Oscar for this performance. And he did. I was right. It has to do with a certain authenticity. It has to do with a certain veins that you pop. It has to do with, you know, the degree to which you go somewhere inside of yourself and you make people feel it.
Yeah, Coda, that performance, again, yeah, you're right. Another one, absolutely incredible. And then you also had Damian Lewis was on your feed as well. He's amazing as well.
Yes, I love Damian Lewis. He is one of my very favorite actors. I hope one day to work with him.
You've worked with tons of people. Chris Rock, you're the one that said, Chris, you should repeat everything you say.
It was great. Chris Rock was great, but he also taught me about life. Gave me great advice on how to raise my kids. I'll never forget that. One of these days, I owe him a big letter of gratitude.
Can you share that advice?
Yeah. You know, and I remember watching a documentary a long time ago, The Race to Nowhere, about a certain parenting style, a certain parenting philosophy, which is, you know, to let them breathe a little bit. Don't have to push and just, yes, you orchestrate for them, you mentor them. You send them to school, you create all kinds of extra activities so that, you know, they find the thing that they love to do. But ultimately, it's okay to let them have a period of time where they do nothing and there's no pressure on them to do it. And so I've really, truly followed that. I just let them be. And I think that really works. There'll be plenty of time in your adult life to feel the pressures of life and want to do chins up and raise the bar and be driven and go after. And, you know, I remember that actually was a message that my dad had sent me. It was an advice that my dad shared with me. He said, you don't have to rush to get it all done. It's okay, just breathe. And I have followed that right down to how I drive. And I remember sometimes somebody muscularizes and they pass me and they, you know, beep because I'm maybe not going fast enough. And then we both end up at the light at the same time, except that person I look, they're super angry and, you know, and I'm just really calm because, you know, I don't feel that you have to do all that. You'll get there. It's okay.
I agree. That's some very wise words. Oh, you worked with Seth MacFarlane.
Yes, I loved working with Seth MacFarlane. He was wonderful. He's just obviously such a brilliant mind and talent, and I love everything that he does.
So brilliant. He's good in The Orville. You did a good job.
He's great.
Let's talk about some of your other movies, shall we? Hello, Herman with Norman Reedus. This is a pretty serious topic as well about school shootings.
Yeah, that was something that good friend of mine, John Buffalo Mailer, the son of Norman Mailer, wrote the screenplay. And it was about a school shooting. And obviously, we've had more school shootings since than, at that time when he wrote it. But this was on the heels of Columbine. And I did want to tell that story. One of the things that I'm drawn to, a theme, is our children falling through the cracks and adults not being there for them enough. And so tragedies happen. And that theme runs, rampant throughout some of my work, including another movie, The Runner. But it was just I was so happy that Norman Reedus came to do the movie. He was another actor that was just phenomenal to work with. He and I got along really well. And, we tried to say something in this movie. A lot of people ended up seeing it when it came out. Unfortunately, it also came out months after what happened in Sandy Hook in Connecticut, and that, we obviously have such a problem with this in our country, and just Nashville just happened, which I can't even bear to look at it. It's just devastating. It just breaks my heart. And I did a movie about that subject matter. It was a difficult movie to make.
Yeah, I can imagine. Where is it available to stream?
It's, I think, on Amazon.
Amazon?
It's, people say it's really powerful. So this was the movie I did before the Bandit Hound. And so I remember doing a bunch of test screenings, and people felt gutted at the end of it. And I thought, and then I did test screenings for the Bandit Hound, and people were like so happy and such in a good mood. And I thought to myself, I think I like to do comedies. People are, just so much happier when they walk out of the theater. I just had to do Hello Herman. I wanted to say what I wanted to say in that movie.
I imagine Lighter Fare with Jason Alexander and How to Go Out on a Date in Queens.
Yeah, so that was my first movie. That was the equivalent of going to film school. I knew nothing, except I did know how to work with actors. But I learned about lenses. I learned about a color palette. I learned about a lot of different things. It was a great experience.
Cool. Was Jason Alexander? Jason Alexander, I from what I've heard, he knows how to do everything. Was he helpful on set? If it being your first film?
Jason Alexander was the best to work with. He ended up staying way over time because he was so generous. Enrique Murciano, which was one of my students, I was his first teacher. Enrique Murciano had a couple of scenes with him, and Jason stayed so he could do the scenes with him. Now, Enrique and I have stayed in touch all these years. I watched him in Bloodline. I've watched him in Without a Trace. I've watched him in so many things that he's done. And every time I was getting ready to cast a movie, I called his agent to see his availability, and he was always, always booked. And so the same thing for Miranda's Victim. I wanted to cast Enrique. And so I called his agent. Nope, he's doing The Night Agent, which is the #1 show right now on Netflix, until July. I was like, shoot, really? And so I called Enrique. I said, I just want you to know that I tried to call again to get you to come work with me. And Enrique's like, whoa, wait a minute. He goes, that's okay. I'm going to get them to kill me off so I can come do this movie. And Enrique came. He came to do Miranda's Victim. He plays Detective Cooley, the main detective on the case that goes after justice for Patricia Weir. And Enrique gives, just wait till you see his performance. Oh my God. Such a great performance. So he was in my first movie, How to Go Out on a Date in Queens, and he's in my latest movie, and I adore him. He's an incredible talent, and I'm sure that he's going to continue to give birth to some great things.
That's awesome. So you're building up your stable. You got your go-to people, right?
We're close. Yeah.
How was Ron Perlman to work with?
Yeah, Ron Perlman was great. He's, a great actor, as we know. Talk about his body of work. He was fun. We had those scenes, which was a lot of fun.
Tell me about working with the late, great Paul Sorvino in Bad Impulse. I know he had a smaller role in the Bandit. Hound as the chief of police. But you also did Bad Impulse.
He told me when I sent him the script, he told me that he knew immediately how to play this character. And as a matter of fact, I took my kids to Disney World, and I remember being on a ride, and Paul is calling me, and I'm like up and down and sideways. Hi, Paul, can I call you back? Well, I just want to tell you that I really like the script and I'm going to do it. And I was just great. And, he came, and it was a vintage Paul Sorvino. I was so, so sad when he passed away because, I mean, he passed away working. He was, shooting something. There's some actors that will just go out doing the thing that they love doing the most. He was one of them. Another great actor. I mean, we'll never forget, his scenes in Goodfellas, that tomato sauce.
I could watch that man cut garlic 24/7.
Exactly. Right? Yeah.
Slice garlic. It left off of the in memoriam.
Yeah, that was very upsetting. Every year they miss people. I don't understand how that happens.
Is there not somebody just in charge of keeping the list and a Google sheet or something? You think it wouldn't be that hard?
Yeah, you would have me. How can you leave out Paul Sorvino? It doesn't make any sense.
Not to negate somebody else, but they got the writer from the show from 40 years ago. You know what I mean? Like, but then, yeah, how do you forget Paul Sorvino? I mean,
they need to look at these oversights because there's just some people that they can't leave out. I mean, they left out Robert Blake too. I don't know if there was a reason for that.
You think they could just crowdsource it too? Here's the list we got. Anybody we're missing, folks? You know what I mean? Then people could just put it in because they always say, we don't have time. We ran out of time. So you had time. You didn't have to cut to Lenny Kravitz for 5 minutes when there was no one on screen. You know what I mean? It's like you had time. You could have fit them in. So it's, I imagine, devastating because anyway, sorry. I got triggered. So what's next?
Well, I'm developing some projects. I've been offered this big movie that I've signed on to do. I'm working on an acting book. I'm teaching. I'm going to continue to do the festival circuit. We have several festivals that are coming up. We're going to World Fest Houston at the end of April. And then we have a few more after that. And so, yeah, I'm just, I'm excited to just take one day at a time and see what everything brings. I just keep working.
Well, I don't know how you fit it all in. You're amazing. And I appreciate you fitting in this interview and spending time with me. It was great. I enjoyed it.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
All right. How amazing was Michelle Danner? Director, acting teacher. I learned a lot in this episode. Definitely check out the Bandit, Hound, and Blue Angel, who made a guest appearance early in the show, I'm talking to Blue Angel's agent, and we'll have Blue Angel back for a full episode. Great in that movie. It's a real fun family film if you're looking for something to watch with your family. Can't wait to see Miranda's Victim. Sounds amazing. Michelle Danner makes incredible films. Go and support all of her body of work. If you need to become an actor, check out her acting school. MichelleDanner.com for all that goodness. All right, well, this episode has come to an end. I can't believe it either. Special thanks to Blue Angel and, of course, my super special guest, Michelle Danner. Next episode is number 250. We got Burt Ward's coming back to the show. That's going to be fun. Huge thanks to Michelle Danner. And, of course, huge thanks to all of you for coming back week after week. It means the world to me. And I'll see you next time.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Classic Conversations. If you like what you heard, don't be shy and give us a follow on your favorite podcast app. Also, why not go ahead and tell all your friends about the show? You strike us as the kind of person that people listen to. Thanks in advance for spreading the word, and we'll catch you next time on Classic Conversations.